More than a decade after its disappearance from the skies, the search for Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 is set to resume in December 2025. Ocean Infinity's Armada autonomous vessel will participate in the search, hoping to find answers to the mystery that has remained unsolved for a decade. Numerous searches have taken place, costing a fortune and utilizing advanced equipment, but all have yielded no results. So why, in 2025, has the Malaysian government decided to reopen the search? What new mystery has been uncovered? Will the search provide a final answer or further reinforce theories about this being a disappearance influenced by supernatural forces? Flight MH370 may have disappeared in 2014, but its story is far from over. More than 10 years after Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 vanished from the sky, the search has officially resumed. This return to the ocean floor comes not with fanfare, but with restraint. There are no promises of miracles, only the acknowledgement that the mystery remains unresolved and that time alone does not erase unanswered questions. In early 2025, the Malaysian government quietly approved a renewed search effort, marking the first serious operational return since the previous campaign was suspended years earlier. The decision was not driven by political pressure or a sudden media resurgence. It followed a long period of technical reassessment, independent analysis, and growing recognition that earlier search zones may not have covered the most probable impact location. This new search is fundamentally different from what came before. Malaysia has not launched a full-scale state-led operation as it did in the past. Instead, the government has taken a limited supervisory role, allowing the search itself to be carried out by a private entity. That responsibility has been assigned to Ocean Infinity, a marine robotics firm specializing in deep-sea exploration and autonomous underwater systems. The structure of the agreement is unusual and deliberate. It follows a no-find, no-fee model. If no significant wreckage is located, the Malaysian government will not be required to pay for the operation. Only the confirmed discovery of material linked to the aircraft would trigger compensation. This arrangement removes political urgency from the process and shifts the financial risk onto the search operator. It also signals a realistic expectation that the search may fail, but that the attempt itself still carries value. Once approval was granted, preparations moved quickly. Ocean Infinity readied its primary search vessel and deployed supporting systems within weeks. The ship departed from Fremantle in Western Australia, a port long used as a staging ground for Indian Ocean missions. Fremantle provides direct access to the southern Indian Ocean, as well as the infrastructure required to support prolonged deep-water operations. From there, the vessel began its transit toward a newly refined search zone. This zone is notably smaller than those explored in previous campaigns. It is based on updated flight path reconstructions, refined satellite handshake interpretations, and revised debris drift modeling developed over the last several years. Before any full-scale scanning begins, the operation follows a staged approach. The vessel is expected to pause at designated technical waypoints along the route. These pauses allow engineers to deploy, calibrate, and test autonomous underwater vehicles in real ocean conditions. Sonar resolution, navigation accuracy, and system synchronization are verified before intensive mapping begins. Only after these checks are completed will continuous seabed scanning commence. There is no fixed deadline for the mission. The duration will depend on weather conditions, data quality, and the practical limits of deep ocean surveying. Unlike earlier efforts, speed is not the objective. Coverage is not the objective. Precision is. This renewed search does not claim it will solve the mystery. It exists because leaving the question unanswered was no longer acceptable. At first glance, restarting the search for MH370 after more than 10 years may seem unrealistic. The ocean is vast, the trail is cold, and time is often mistaken for closure. But in this case, time has changed the equation rather than ending it. The decision to search again is not driven by emotion alone. It is rooted in the realization that earlier conclusions were based on incomplete tools, broader assumptions, and limitations that no longer apply today. Much of the data used during the initial investigations has not disappeared. What has changed is how that data can now be interpreted. Satellite handshake records, debris drift models, and flight path reconstructions have been re-examined using methods that simply did not exist a decade ago. Patterns that once appeared ambiguous now point toward narrower possibilities. This leads to the first and most practical reason for returning to the search. Seabed technology has advanced dramatically. Autonomous underwater vehicles today can scan deeper, move longer, and map the ocean floor with a level of resolution that was once impossible. Terrain that previously appeared as featureless noise can now be distinguished in fine detail. Objects once hidden by shadows, ridges, or sediment can be detected with greater confidence. The second reason lies in geography rather than machinery. The potential search area is no longer a massive arc stretching across the southern Indian Ocean. Years of refinement have allowed investigators to rule out large sections of earlier zones. What remains is smaller, more focused, and operationally realistic. A search that once required years and international coordination can now be conducted with fewer assets and clearer priorities. This shift changes the risk calculation. What was once prohibitively broad has become narrowly possible. The third reason has never faded with time. The families of the 239 people on board have not stopped asking questions. They have lived for more than a decade without certainty, without remains, and without a definitive explanation. For them, the absence of answers is not history. It is a daily reality. Every renewed analysis, every technological breakthrough, and every official silence has kept the issue alive rather than resolved it. Pressure from the families has not been loud, but it has been constant, and it has mattered. History also reminds us that delayed discoveries are not anomalies. In 1985, in a swamp deep within the jungles of New Guinea, investigators stumbled upon a twin-engine passenger aircraft that had vanished nearly 50 years earlier. Its disappearance had long been considered unsolvable, yet it was found. The wreck of the Titanic rested on the ocean floor for almost a century before technology finally caught up with the mystery. Its location did not change. Only human capability did. These cases share a common lesson. Time does not erase physical truth. It only determines when we are capable of finding it. The renewed search for MH370 is not an act of defiance against time. It is an acknowledgement that time may finally be working in our favor. One of the biggest misunderstandings surrounding MH370 is the belief that the ocean was already searched thoroughly. That assumption sounds reasonable on paper, but it breaks down once we examine how those searches were actually conducted. Between 2014 and 2017, the main underwater search effort was led by Australia under the coordination of the Australian Transport Safety Bureau. The operation deployed autonomous underwater vehicles equipped with side-scan sonar and multi-beam echo sounders, technology that was considered advanced at the time. However, those systems had clear and measurable limits. Most AUVs used during the MH370 search operated sonar frequencies between 30 and 40 kHz. At depths exceeding about 2.5 miles, 4,000 meters, which was common in the southern Indian Ocean search zone, this frequency range produced an effective image resolution of roughly 2 to 3 meters, about 6.6 feet to 9.8 feet per pixel. That meant any object smaller than a compact car could easily blend into the surrounding terrain. More critically, sonar coverage was not continuous. a TSB's final report confirmed that many areas were scanned only once without overlapping passes. In rugged seabed regions filled with ridges, trenches, and underwater cliffs, this created large sonar shadow zones. If wreckage lay behind a slope or inside a trench, the sonar simply could not see it. In several documented cases, anomalous sonar returns were flagged but never re-examined due to time and budget constraints. Another major limitation was navigation accuracy. Early AUV positioning relied heavily on inertial navigation systems, which drift over time. At extreme depths, positional errors could reach tens of meters. This made it difficult to relocate suspicious targets precisely, even when they were detected. The second major issue involved satellite data. Investigators relied heavily on handshake signals provided by Inmarsat. These signals were never designed for aircraft tracking. They only confirmed that the aircraft's satellite terminal was powered on, not where the aircraft was or how it was flying. The original flight path models used simplified assumptions. They treated the aircraft as if it flew steadily until fuel exhaustion and then fell almost vertically. Later studies showed this assumption was flawed. Modern flight dynamics models suggest a Boeing 777 could glide for tens of kilometers after fuel exhaustion, depending on altitude, configuration, and autopilot behavior. That single change alone can shift the estimated impact zone by hundreds of kilometers. Ocean current data posed another challenge. Early drift models were based on limited surface current observations. Over the past decade, researchers have gathered long-term data showing that debris could circulate in large gyres, delaying landfall for months or even years. This explains why confirmed MH370 debris appeared thousands of kilometers from initial search zones and much later than expected. Finally, there was a psychological factor. Once officials declared that a massive area had been searched, the conclusion quietly formed that nothing more could be done. Searches ended not because the aircraft was ruled out, but because confidence in existing assumptions went unchallenged. The reality is simple. The ocean was not fully explored. It was explored using the best tools available at the time, guided by models that we now know were incomplete. The failure was not a lack of effort, it was a lack of visibility, and that difference matters. All the failures of the past point to a single reality. MH370 was not hidden by the ocean, it was hidden by the limits of the tools used to look for it. That limitation no longer defines the search. When the operation restarted, it did so with a technological stack designed to remove uncertainty at every level. At the heart of the mission is the fleet operated by Ocean Infinity, built around autonomous underwater vehicles capable of extreme depth and endurance. These AUVs include Huygens-class systems developed by Saab and advanced seabed mapping platforms produced by Kongsberg Maritime. They are designed to operate at depths beyond about 3.7 miles, far exceeding the depth reached by most equipment used in the 2017 search. Each vehicle can remain submerged for up to 48 hours, running pre-programmed grid patterns without interruption. Instead of wide spacing between scan lines, these AUVs fly low over the seabed, often at altitudes below 164 feet, 50 meters. This creates overlapping sonar coverage that dramatically reduces blind zones caused by ridges, slopes, and sediment shadows. But the AUVs do not operate alone. They are deployed and coordinated from specialized surface vessels, often referred to as motherships. These ships are equipped with dynamic positioning systems that keep them fixed above target areas even in rough seas. This stability is critical for accurate underwater navigation and precise vehicle recovery. In addition to AUVs, remotely operated vehicles, or ROVs, are used during verification phases. Unlike autonomous systems, ROVs are tethered to the ship and controlled in real time. They carry high-definition cameras, laser measurement tools, and manipulators capable of close inspection. If an anomaly is detected, ROVs can descend to visually confirm whether it is aircraft debris, geological structure, or man-made interference. Another major leap lies in sonar capability itself. The latest systems use synthetic aperture sonar operating at frequencies exceeding 100 kHz. Compared to the side-scan sonar used before 2017, this represents more than a twofold increase in resolution. Objects as small as half a meter can now be distinguished clearly. Metallic components reflect sonar waves sharply, producing signatures that stand out against natural terrain. This technology has already proven effective in deep-sea recoveries, including military aircraft, submarines, and historic shipwrecks once thought impossible to locate. Equally important is what happens after the seabed is scanned. Modern searches generate massive datasets, often containing tens of millions of sonar points. Instead of relying solely on human review, advanced algorithms are now used to process this information. Machine learning systems flag anomalies based on shape, reflectivity, alignment, and clustering. This allows analysts to focus on what does not belong to the environment. Crucially, older sonar data from previous searches can be reanalyzed using these same tools. Features that once blended into background noise can now be isolated and reevaluated. Taken together, this changes the nature of the search. The ocean floor is no longer a single-pass mystery. It becomes a layered archive that can be revisited with better eyes. Technology does not promise certainty, but for the first time, it removes the excuse of not seeing clearly enough. With the technological limitations of earlier searches largely addressed, the renewed hunt for MH370 is no longer an open-ended operation. This time, it follows a defined roadmap with time limits, checkpoints, and clear decision points. According to statements cited by Malaysia's Transport Ministry and reported by outlets such as ABC News and First Post, the new search is structured as a finite campaign rather than a permanent deployment. The operation is expected to run in several discrete phases, each lasting between 30 and 45 days. These time windows are based on Ocean Infinity's standard deep-sea survey cycles, which balance endurance, data processing capacity, and operational cost. After each phase, results are reviewed jointly by the company and Malaysian authorities before any extension is approved. There is no automatic continuation. If no credible targets are identified, the search can be paused or terminated without political escalation. The first phase is analytical and preparatory. This stage takes place largely before the vessels reach the main search zone. Existing satellite models, including revised Inmarsat ARC interpretations, are re-evaluated. Drift analyses based on debris recovered between 2015 and 2020 are updated using long-term Indian Ocean current data. Historical sonar records from the 2014 to 2017 searches are also re-examined, particularly areas where resolution or coverage was incomplete. Based on reporting from First Post interviews with aviation experts, this data refinement process alone took several months before the new deployment was approved. Only after priority zones are narrowed does the physical search begin. The second phase is seabed scanning. Ocean Infinity deploys its survey vessel to the southern Indian Ocean, with operations typically staged from ports in Western Australia, most commonly Fremantle. From there, autonomous underwater vehicles are launched in defined grids. Each grid is designed to be fully covered within a single operational window, rather than partially scanned and abandoned. This phase is expected to last several weeks per zone, depending on seabed complexity and weather conditions. Importantly, scanning does not stop once a single anomaly is detected. All planned grid passes are completed before resources are redirected. This discipline is a direct response to lessons learned from earlier searches that shifted focus too quickly. The third phase is verification and interpretation. Targets flagged during scanning are ranked and reviewed. Only those meeting strict criteria are inspected using remotely operated vehicles. If confirmed debris is found, attention turns to spatial context. Investigators look for debris fields, impact scars, or terrain disturbance rather than isolated objects. This phase can extend the operation by several additional weeks if warranted. Overall, reporting from ABC News suggests that the full campaign is not expected to exceed 3 to 4 months unless compelling evidence emerges. Beyond that point, any continuation would require a new agreement. Another key difference lies in who controls the process. The operational core consists of Ocean Infinity engineers, sonar specialists, and navigation experts. Independent analysts review data separately, reducing pressure to confirm preconceived theories. Political involvement is deliberately limited. As noted by aviation analysts in multiple interviews, this separation allows technical judgment to drive decisions rather than public expectation. The result is a search defined not just by technology, but by restraint. It does not promise certainty, but it ensures that time, effort, and hope are spent with intention rather than repetition. Unlike earlier efforts, the renewed search for MH370 does not begin by redrawing the entire map. It does not return to the massive 46,000 square mile zone scanned between 2014 and 2017. That earlier approach was shaped by uncertainty. Investigators searched wide because they did not know where the aircraft ended its flight. This time, the strategy is fundamentally different. The current operation starts from the assumption that searching everywhere is not the same as searching intelligently. Officials and analysts involved in the renewed effort have emphasized that this is not a symbolic restart or a procedural exercise. It is a targeted operation designed to revisit only the areas where probability has increased over time. One of the clearest differences is scale. While the original seabed search covered an area roughly 3 times the size of Mississippi, the new focus zone is estimated to be closer to an area between about 7,700 and 9,600 square miles. This figure has been referenced in multiple reports discussing Ocean Infinity's proposed contract terms and operational scope. The reduction is not arbitrary. It reflects more than a decade of additional data refinement. The first pillar of this narrowing comes from satellite analysis. The original Inmarsat ARC models defined a broad corridor where the aircraft could have crossed after its last satellite handshake. At the time, limited understanding of aircraft behavior after fuel exhaustion forced analysts to assume a near-immediate descent. Newer modeling challenges that assumption. Aviation experts cited in first-post interviews explain that a Boeing 777 at cruising altitude can glide for over 62 miles after fuel starvation, depending on configuration and control inputs. That single variable alone shifts the possible impact zone significantly south of earlier ideal crash points. The second pillar is ocean drift analysis. Between 2015 and 2020, more than 30 pieces of debris believed to be from MH370 were recovered along the western Indian Ocean, including Reunion Island, Mozambique, and South Africa. Early drift models were based on short-term current data. Updated simulations now use multi-year Indian Ocean circulation patterns, including seasonal reversals. Independent researchers referenced in documentary transcripts argue that these refined models converge on a smaller region in the southern Indian Ocean rather than dispersing probability outward. The third factor is a reassessment of what investigators are actually looking for. Earlier searches prioritized a single impact point. The assumption was that the aircraft broke apart rapidly and sank near that location. That mindset has changed. Current planning emphasizes finding debris fields, terrain disturbances, or unnatural seabed patterns rather than a single intact fuselage. Sonar specialists interviewed in the transcripts note that this approach aligns better with how large aircraft behave during uncontrolled or partially controlled water impacts. The core distinction, then, is philosophical as much as technical. Before, the search was wide because certainty was low. Now the search is narrow because confidence has improved, not because the mystery is solved, but because the margin of error has shrunk. This does not guarantee success, but it means every square kilometer surveyed now carries more informational weight than it did 10 years ago. In deep-sea search, that difference is everything. At this stage, the renewed search for MH370 is no longer framed as a single all-or-nothing gamble. Experts involved in the operation repeatedly stress that there are multiple possible outcomes. Each of them carries a different kind of value. The most optimistic scenario is also the most straightforward: the discovery of the main wreckage. If the aircraft's fuselage or large structural sections are located, investigators could finally identify the exact impact site. That alone would resolve one of the longest-standing uncertainties in the case. Based on prior deep-sea recoveries, experts note that even at depths exceeding 2.4 miles, identifiable aircraft structures can remain intact for decades. The discovery of Air France Flight 447 in 2011, 2 years after its crash at nearly 2.4 miles depth, is often cited as proof that time and pressure do not automatically erase evidence. In the MH370 case, finding the wreckage could also allow recovery of flight recorders, though expectations remain cautious. Black box batteries are rated for roughly 30 days, but physical memory modules have survived far longer in other accidents. Even partial data would help reconstruct the final minutes of the flight. A second, more moderate scenario is considered equally realistic by many analysts: the discovery of debris fields, impact scars, or indirect seabed anomalies. Sonar specialists interviewed in the documentary transcripts emphasize that large aircraft impacts often leave scattered signatures rather than a single concentrated wreck. Disturbed sediment patterns, unnatural linear debris trails, metallic reflections inconsistent with geological formations. Any of these findings would immediately narrow the search zone further. Ocean Infinity representatives have previously stated that identifying a confirmed debris field would justify follow-up missions with remotely operated vehicles for visual confirmation. In this scenario, the search would not end, but it would evolve. The difference is that future efforts would start from evidence, not inference. There is also a third outcome that must be addressed honestly: the possibility that no significant wreckage is found during this campaign. Experts caution that this should not be interpreted as failure. Deep ocean search is probabilistic by nature. Every area scanned and cleared reduces uncertainty. During the 2014 to 2017 search, more than 46,000 square miles were mapped. Yet analysts later concluded that the aircraft likely lay outside that zone. This time, even a negative result would eliminate high-probability regions from future consideration. Aviation analyst John Nance previously explained that narrowing the unknown is often the only measurable progress in cases like this. In statistical terms, removing a search area with high confidence is equivalent to increasing certainty elsewhere. This leads to the most important point emphasized by experts. This search is not driven by belief, it is driven by probability. Earlier phases of the investigation relied on incomplete data and necessary assumptions. Today's operation integrates refined satellite modeling, updated drift analysis, and improved seabed mapping. Each pass of the sonar is not a hope, it is a calculation. Whether the outcome is discovery, refinement, or exclusion, the process itself reshapes what is known. And in a mystery defined by absence, that may be the only path forward. The renewed search for MH370 does not promise a miracle. No one believes that the ocean will easily relinquish all the secrets it has kept buried for over 10 years. But for the first time in years, there is reason to hope that the veil of mystery might begin to be lifted. New technology, a narrower search area, and a clearer strategy have reopened a door that seemed permanently closed. Whether anything is found or not, this is still the last serious effort to replace silence with answers. In your opinion, will this search be enough to reveal the truth about MH370, or will the ocean forever keep that secret?